So if we're telling ourselves this story that is leading to feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome or I'm worthless or whatever, something about that story that we're telling ourselves is off. It's false. And so if we can learn what the story is,
right,
understand it, and learn how to change that story so that it's actually true, it's going to allow us to become who we are meant to be, to live that authentic life that we're looking for, to do the things that are going to resonate with us, to become who we're meant to become.
Everybody has a story to tell that makes them extraordinary, and that's what this podcast is all about. Welcome back to Conversations with Caitlin. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Caitlin, where we interview ordinary people doing extraordinary things. My guest today is a dear friend, a fellow theater performer, and a life coach. So we have a lot to get into today. So without further ado, please welcome Ariel Johnson.
Hello, Caitlin.
Hello, Ariel.
So good to be with you.
I'm thrilled you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So thinking about guests and people that I find very interesting, you were one of those people at the top of my list for a lot of reasons.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I think the biggest one is that you have, over the last couple of years, had a significant pivot and shift in the way that you're doing business and living your life. And I am fascinated by all of the pivots that life has to offer. And so I was hoping you would kick us off with sharing a little bit about your origin story. Like, how did you get into theater? How did you become an attorney? And then we can kind of really delve into the really burning questions around life coaching as well.
You got it. You got it. Okay, so let's see. Order. You asked about my origin story.
Yes.
Because I am an X-Man.
You are.
No.
You are. The superpowers are real with
right.
this one.
Yeah. So, wow, where to begin? And you also asked about theater and lawyer. Okay. So theater, that's an easy question to answer. I come from a really musical family, like weirdly, oddly musical. Like there would be times where like we'd have a full on like 4-part harmony as just my nuclear family, my mom, dad, and my 4 sisters. I don't have any brothers, so I'm the only boy.
Which prepared you to be a dad to girls and a good husband.
That's right. Yeah, right. So, but I was 7 years old when I auditioned for my first play. I got the part of Randolph McAfee in Bye Bye Birdie. So I had this little hat with like the spinny thing on the top, and that was my introduction to theater, and I fell in love with it and just performing in general. So that put me on a path of just loving musical theater and performing, and that's how I got into theater. Lawyer, oh man, I kind of stumbled into being a lawyer maybe a little bit. I went to school and I studied human development. And so everybody that I graduated with went on to become licensed marriage and family therapists or to get their PhD and teach at university. But I didn't. Once I decided I wanted to go to law school, you can study whatever you want. If you're going to law school, you can study whatever you want. You just have to take the law school admission test, and get okay grades, and you can go to law school. It's great. You just take the test, get grades, and then you go.
And there you are.
And that's it. And so once I decided that I wanted to go to law school, I decided to pick something that really interested me. And it's interesting how life works because I've kind of circled back to what I was really originally passionate about. So when I was in college, and so there's a part of me I think that wonders like, if I hadn't have gone to law school, but I don't regret any of the life choices that I made with respect to my education because I just learned so much. I loved the exercise of law school. I've loved all the people I've worked with and the things that I've learned over the years being a lawyer. So I still practice law. I do that part-time, but I have made some significant shifts in life and career that have led me to being a certified life coach. So do you want me to go into how did I got there too? I'll just keep talking.
I'm like, give me the litany of life. No. So I think a couple of things, theater is so interesting to me, and the friends and the colleagues we make doing shows are so fascinating because we all have such interesting and very diverse backgrounds.
True.
However, I also do think that being an attorney, the theater piece must lend itself nicely to the practice of law because it really is performance in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I've had my fair share of, jury trials and gone to hearings and taken depositions and all that. I'm a litigator by practice. That's what I've done since I graduated in 2013 from law school. So there is absolutely, I would say, an element of being able to, how do I say it? Because it's not like I don't consider it like a performance in the same way that I do when I'm on a stage, but just knowing how to like present something in front of another person in a way that's going to be compelling and believable. Not that I'm sitting up there just lying and, I want to make sure the judge really believes what I'm saying. But you're advocating a position on behalf of a client, and so it needs to be convincing. And you should believe what you're saying, right? And so I guess in that way, maybe it's slightly different because I'm not portraying a character or something like that. But absolutely, there's an element of theatrics or performing that goes into litigating.
And I really feel like the storytelling aspect of life, we're all telling some sort of story in our day-to-day. And, I mean, for me personally, that's what draws me to theater is the idea that we get to share someone else's story with a larger group to create thought and dialogue and discussion. But I definitely think you've had an interesting kind of change of events the last 2 years. So let's just dive right into it.
Let's do it.
We did law. We did the damn thing. We had our time. So what was that moment? Because I think a lot of my listeners are aspirational and ambitious. They might be thinking like, how do I pivot? How do I do something new, right? Like we're both millennials, that generation. We were taught you go to school, you do the thing. This is what you do. 40 years later, you get your little watch, you go home. Like we were raised by people that, for no fault of their own, that very hardworking mentality and staying with a company and that loyalty and like doing something forever. I feel like for me personally, that was deeply ingrained into my upbringing, right? My mom was a trauma nurse for 50 years. My dad has worked in facility operations and like leading teams with that for decades. Mm-hmm. So I have these two examples of like we stay the course and we do the thing, right? And so I think one of my fascinating thoughts about you is like, so how did the life coaching thing come to be? Because obviously we're friends, we do shows, we see each other here and there, but it kind of seemed like it came out of left field when I was like, oh, he's doing this now? Okay.
Surprise. Yeah, so I wasn't, well, I didn't know what I didn't know. I guess I'll say that. And what I mean by that is I didn't realize that life coaching was going to be a thing for me until I did. Okay, that's a silly way of saying it, but so honestly, I would say that it started in 2020. Okay, warning, about to get a little religious here. So I am a man of deep faith.
That is okay.
And I talk to God sometimes. I try to talk to God regularly. And I was praying one day, and I got this thought that I thought was so weird and random, and I didn't understand it at the time. But the thought was, Ariel, you need to become more comfortable being uncomfortable. And this was at the height of like COVID insanity where the world was shut down. I didn't know if I was going to have a job. I didn't know whether I was going to have to fire some of these people that were working for me at the time. I didn't know. There were so many unknowns. Wiping down groceries when you come out from the store and wearing masks everywhere. There was a lot of just uncertainty about the state of everything. And so at the time I wondered, well, does that mean like someone close to me gonna like get sick, or are they gonna die, or am I gonna lose my job, or like right. What is this discomfort, this becoming more comfortable, what does that mean?
Totally.
And so I didn't know what that meant, but I believed that it was a message for me. And so I tried to really understand what that meant. And over the next 2 years, well, 3 years really, I think I got a pretty clear picture of what that meant for me. And it got to the point where, and it's not like, sorry, in 2020, when this happened, I was already feeling kind of stuck in my career. So I had been practicing law for 7 years up to that point. I was managing an office of about 12 other people. There were like 5 other attorneys, and there was 7 staff. And it was an insurance company. I was running their Nevada branch of their sort of in-house, handling all their car accident cases, doing personal injury defense. And I just felt stuck. I felt like, man, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. I looked at other people who were partners at other firms, and I was like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. Am I being like, oh, I just don't like, am I being lazy, or am I being like unrealistic about like doing something that I'm a little more passionate about, or like I've already put in all this time and this money. I had just paid back my student loans at that point, and I was like, hallelujah, like we're done. And then I'm like, and now I'm having second thoughts about this whole lawyer thing.
About the
like,
whole entire career.
Right. Yeah. So I just felt stuck. And then I had this experience in 2020. So it took me a couple of years to like hit rock bottom. I say that kind of jokingly, but like it got worse before it got better. And I didn't know what to do, didn't know where to turn. And around the same time, and by the way, if I'm taking too long, Caitlin, you just jump in with a question, or you just cut me off. But all of this, I promise, will, I think, help your listeners maybe understand a little bit more about where and how this all came together. So at the time, my wife was, so Sarah, my wife, you know Sarah.
Yes.
She struggled with postpartum depression after our second child. So I have 3 children, and it eventually went away. But after our third, it just never went away. And so she tried all kinds of things to help alleviate what she was experiencing. She tried diet, she tried exercise, she tried medication, she tried therapy, she tried all these things, right? And eventually she landed on hiring a life coach. And at the time, I was like, you've tried everything, like, for sure. Like, if you think this could help, like, totally support you. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So she did it. She hired a life coach, a lady who we go to church with, who we trust, who we love. And after a month or two, I started to see these incredible changes in my wife. And I was like, what is life coaching? Like, what is it? How does it work? Like, tell me more about this, because like, this is really making a difference for you. And I hadn't really like come out and said, I hate my job. And because I didn't hate everything about it. There were just pieces of it that I was like, oh, I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of doing the things that didn't resonate with me, that were just like,
right.
The
grueling
struggle,
tasks
right.
of every day. Yes.
Right. And it's like, there are aspects of life that are hard. There are aspects of life that are challenging. We can't escape hard, right? We're going to be uncomfortable. We're going to encounter trials, tribulations, challenges, whatever you want to call them. And so it wasn't like I was not aware of that fact. But I just was really not loving where I was, and I just felt stuck. So she hires a life coach, my wife does, and I start to look into what life coaching is. And it leads to me eventually reaching out to a friend who I had been following for years on LinkedIn. He's a life coach. And I was like, he's like huge on LinkedIn now. He's got like,
oh, wow.
And I don't know how he's like 30, 50,000 followers, whatever, on LinkedIn, which for LinkedIn, that's a lot.
That is serious business on the business app.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I ended up hiring him as my life coach. And Caitlin, it rocked my world in the best way. It changed my life. And I am so grateful to him. I'm so grateful to the process of just being able to like examine myself and sit with the things that I've been uncomfortable with for all these years, and just like have space, which is really what life coaching is all about. It is allowing yourself the freedom to invest some time into yourself, to discover what it is that makes you tick, figure out what you value, figure out what you love, figure out what you want. I felt like for the first time in my life, I gave myself permission to say, okay, what do I actually want? Because yes, I had tried to find a career that would resonate with my talents, with things that I was interested in. And in so many ways, the law does that for me. But there were some really key parts of practicing that were antithetical, I would say, to like what I value and who I am. But it was like, I know I want a family someday. I'm just going to do this thing. I know I can make money being a lawyer. Like, I'm just going to go do it, right? And like, there's value in just kind of jumping into something, right? There is
totally.
Like, there's value in that. And so again, I don't regret any of these things, but it wasn't until like I opened myself up to be like, okay, what do I want? That I gave myself freedom to explore, and like the world of possibility just kind of opened to my view. And I was like, man, like this whole life coaching thing has helped me so much, and my wife, and like everyone I know who's done this has benefited from it. So like, what if I shared what I've learned with other people? What if I was able to help people who were struggling like I was, who felt stuck, who were anxious, overwhelmed, stressed, getting angry at nothing or everything, and just experiencing the same things that I was going through. Like, I can help them now because I have experienced this change in me. I've learned some mental fitness tools. I've learned this model of like how to process and how to understand and how to think that has just transformed my life. Like, I want to share this with other people. But that was really scary because I had spent all this time being educated. I spent all this time in the law. And now I'm like, and now I want to do this thing where it's like, well, I don't have any clients. I don't really do social media. Like, well, I don't know, what's that about? But all of those things that, a lot of times we have these great ideas or these things that we really want, and then immediately our mind, in an effort to keep us comfortable, to keep us safe,
to protect us, the big P.
It thinks it's protecting us, but the reality is sometimes our minds hold us back. And we don't do things that we want to do because we're like, oh, I couldn't do that. Again, not saying we shouldn't be aware of risk. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. But just giving yourself space to dream a little bit. So fast forward. So I hire a life coach. I rehire a life coach. And I decide, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. I'm just going to do it on the side, and we'll see what happens. So I go get certified. I spend 6 months getting certified as a life coach, just doing like a weekly, few hour a week class. Get certified, and then I'm like, okay, now what? Okay, well, I guess I'll put myself out there on LinkedIn. That's the only social media that I, use. And so I start posting on LinkedIn. I have no idea what I'm doing. Start posting, and within a few weeks, somebody reaches out. And they're like, hey, I'm really struggling. And I'm like, I hear you. Let's figure this out. Let's do this, So first client hires me, and then a few weeks later, I get another one. A few months later, I've got a handful of clients. And so it's been a slow but steady build. And it got to the point where I was able to go to my boss, who, shout out to my boss, if you know who, yeah, he knows who he is. I said, hey, you might think I'm crazy, but I'm doing this life coaching thing and I love it and it's really fulfilling, and I'd like to go part-time as a lawyer. And he's like, well, after the initial shock wore off, he graciously agreed. We came up with an arrangement that was going to work for both of us. And so that was last August that I scaled back my law practice to allow more time to do life coaching, and here we are.
So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so easy with the way the world is today, right? Social media being the number one pretend driver of all that is the world, which we know that it's such a crock of shit. And we know that it's really just a snapshot of what people want their perception of you to be, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. I think there's some people that really like go the distance to be really authentic, but
I think that's absolutely true. I think there are a few people that do, but it's just not real. Just not real.
it's not. And so I want to ask, with life coaching, because there's a lot of, I feel like, stigma. When I hear that term, I'm like, ugh.
Totally.
You're gonna get in there and you wanna dig into these, the root cause. Like, let's be honest. Well, if I'm being honest, we're all a little afraid of ourselves. I'm a little afraid of myself. I'm afraid of what I'm capable of, what I don't reach out and try to do because of fear. So my question is, what are you seeing? I think maybe from your personal experience, what do you feel like those like key things that were illuminated for you? Because I mean, leaving a career is massive. I think that when you said that, this little like twinge of my soul was like, how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to have health insurance? How are your kids going to eat? Like, and you go to these like very like logical life things.
Sure.
But I feel like a lot of that's conditioning, right? If you don't do this, this, and this, you're not going to have this, this, and that, right? You can't, if you don't follow the rules, you're not going to have a good life. And the rules, we know as we get older, the rules are so muddy. The rules are very gray. They're not black and white. And so, so what is, for you, like, what do you feel like was the most illuminating thing in being coached that you kind of uncovered?
Oh, so there's a couple things that stand out to me. Number one, which probably is the most important, maybe not. There were some things that I took away that I'll share in just a second, but I think first and foremost, I learned how to think. And it's like, when you hear that, you might be thinking, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you learned how to think?
Right.
So what's fascinating is that, and we've talked about this, but our brains try really, really hard to keep us safe. And it's a good thing most of the time. But it's not very helpful when our brains are trying to keep us safe from pretend future that like
the assumptions and the made up stories that we make about ourselves and what our life will be. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. So so a lot of what I gained in those first like few sessions was like, wow, like I'm understanding what my brain is doing. Like, what is the story my brain is telling me about this situation? And just sit with it and like look at it and like just sit with that like, ugh, like, and
like, what about this is actually the truth?
Exactly.
The truth is usually a little different than the perception that we've made.
100%. 100%. The acronym for fear that I love that some of your listeners have probably heard this before, but it's false evidence appearing real. So fear. And I love that because, and I deal with things. I've had anxiety for the last 3 decades. In fact, I probably had it before that, but it wasn't like a thing growing up. It's like walk it off or whatever.
Yeah, you'll walk it off.
And look, hey, exercise is good. Don't get me wrong. Like,
it is, but also when you grow up in an environment, just thinking back to school, even sit at your desk, be quiet, face forward, When a child's being loud or they're emoting, it's like, don't do that. Stop it right now. Like, how many times did we hear other children told that, or were we told that ourselves?
Totally.
And the reality is kids are the purest form of the human experience because they're just being who they authentically are in that moment.
Totally.
If they're sad, they're being sad. If they're happy, they're being absolutely off the walls, like joyful, And
so why are we suppressing that?
Right. Why are we? Because then what it does is create adults that I think a lot of us, we suppress a lot of our feelings and a lot of the things we felt for a long time. And that is like, I think that's where anxiety comes from. It's just this idea that you can't, completely authentically let that cat out of the bag and say, like, I'm super, I don't know. Ever since my mom died, Ariel, my commitment to myself and to the world around me is that if someone asks me how I am and I'm not doing well, I'm not going to say I'm good, I'm great. I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Things are okay. And it's really interesting. It's very off-putting to a lot of people. Because they want that exchange. It's a transaction, right? It's not an emotionally charged engagement for most people. They want to check the box. How are you?
Doing great.
I'm good.
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Right,
and we move on.
Yeah.
And I think, my observation in not my personal and professional life is that when I actually like cut the shit for myself and for others, my staff knows when I ask you how you are, I'm not just asking for you to be like, I'm great. And you're like tears are streaming down your face and your dog died or you had a really bad medical appointment or you're a human being.
Yeah.
And if I don't acknowledge your humanity, how could we possibly get to the actual work that we've been hired to do? You know?
Sure. So good. So good. Yeah. I think when we ask that question too, we probably ought to be prepared for a legitimate response instead of just hearing someone regurgitate what they say to everybody. I'm good. How are you? Okay. Yeah, that's great. But I think there's a lot of truth to that like trying to not feel our feelings is not helpful. It really isn't. A lot of the things that whether we've been taught or whether we've taught ourselves or whether we've just learned over time that this feeling that's like, this anxious feeling or this feeling overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, it's like, avoid. And it's like, that's understandable, right? Because again, coming back to this whole story our brain tells us, it wants to keep us safe. So where's my phone? Like, let's get a quick dopamine hit to forget about what I'm actually feeling, which is this anxious, like, why am I feeling this? So, I don't know where I was going with that, but so I've struggled with anxiety and so one of the things that has helped me most in this whole coaching journey, has been to understand really like where that has come from. And what's incredible is that for every human person, we have this thing where the story that our brain is telling us in a given moment produces certain feelings that we have. And those feelings then inspire action or inaction, depending on what the feeling is, which will then produce results in our lives. And so a lot of times when we are in this sort of primal, and I'll refer to it as like a primal state, whether it's anxiety, whether you're feeling a bit depressed or whether you're angry or these sort of primal emotions, they really do stem from the way that we think, the meaning that we assign to our circumstance. And so understanding that there's a way to, maybe this is an overstatement, but like rewire the way that you think and the meaning that you assign to the circumstances that you find yourself in. A lot of time, we don't choose our circumstances in any, given time. I've chosen to come and spend some time with you, which I am so grateful for, right? I put myself in this circumstance. But this is set up, right? This isn't real life. And in life, we don't often choose the circumstances we're in completely, right? There's unexpected things that come up. And so if we can learn to view those circumstances in a way that's going to produce feelings that are going to inspire the actions that we want, which are going to produce the results that we want, well, then why wouldn't we do that? And so one of the things that I love about coaching is that I get to help people do that. I get to help people unlock this hidden superpower that exists within every single one of us, which is we can choose what we think. We can choose the meaning that we assign to circumstances. That doesn't mean that like we're brainwashing ourselves into believing that something that happened is like, oh, this is fantastic. Like part of being human is feeling all of the feelings. But just because we feel sad or just because we're feeling stressed about something, that doesn't mean that has to consume our life. We have opportunities every single day to shift that train of thought, to shift what is happening around us, to change from that primal state into a more powerful state. Because the reality is, when we're in that primal state, we're not nearly as productive, as caring, as loving, as kind. And
you're defensive, which shuts you down to people, places, things, experiences.
Yeah.
That if you were just taking a beat, literally, my chiropractor just said this to me 2 days ago. He's like, you know what? I used to get so triggered by like certain things. And he's like, he's like, it's the silliest thing, but he's like, I say to myself, if I'm by myself aloud or if I'm with someone in my head, we're not going to do that. Like, just take a breath.
Yeah.
And he's like, it works. It's the dumbest,
Totally.
like, stupidest, like, woo-woo thing. But, well, and I also think, something you said that is really resonating with me is independent thought. Having your own thoughts and opinions. This idea, again, social media, so many cool things that have come out of it, a lot of bad things that have come out of it, right?
Totally.
This pack mentality that people just glom onto something. Someone will come on and say, the sky is red. And within hours, you have influenced, right? Love the influencer thing for this.
Yeah.
Millions of people to go repost or retweet or whatever, the sky is red. And it's so, I have found myself probably since COVID, and I'm guilty of it too, right? When something pulls at your emotions, you're like, oh, this is bad, and you want to jump on the wagon. But I've gotten a lot quieter. And I think, it's scary and it's very lonely because people are like, well, you're not speaking up about this issue. You're not advocating for da-da-da. And it's like, no, I'm taking the time to thoughtfully watch this unfold because I believe that as human beings, we do a massive disservice to one another when we don't do our own research.
Yes.
Oh, my grandpa, he is rolling in his grave with the world right now.
Yeah.
He used to say to me, he was in World War II, like he lied to get in the army. He was 16, you were supposed to be 17.
He's basically Captain America is what you're saying.
He was a scallywag, okay? But like, he was also one of these people, had severe addiction issues with alcohol and had been through AA. And like, you can say whatever you want about AA if you've ever been in it or if you haven't and you have your own opinions. But there's this very interesting, I think, thing that happens when you have to take a hard look at yourself. And like you said, look at what you believe and what you think. Do you think? I think that's a question we're not asking ourselves enough. Do you actually have an independent thought in your brain?
I love that.
And the fear, I know for myself, there are times I want to say something publicly and I don't because I'm afraid. I'm like, well, this goes against the grain. It goes against, the thoughts on the big bad internet, with the keyboard warriors, right? It's taken away a lot of that personability. People are very gutsy and ballsy to say things that they would never dream to say to your face. Because when you put a person in front of you, when you put that humanity into it, that changes it completely. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's harder to be nasty. It's harder to say lies when someone is right in front of you versus just typing it out on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the real challenges with social media. I mean, there's a lot. And there's a lot of good things, like you said, but there's a lot of challenges. And one of them, you take away the humanity of people when it's just, I'm just putting this out there. I'm not saying it to any one person. It's not personal.
It's not personal, but yet there was personal intent to do harm or rile someone up or, right? Like for the most part. Things are said in controversy because you want a reaction. You want the like, you want the follow, right? And I think the challenge in this world is to show up authentically and be genuine and actually like seek to understand. I used to hate that saying. I'm like, this is so Tony Robbins, gross. But it's true, right? And I think if you unpack a lot of the experiences you have on a day-to-day basis with people, why they are the way they are, the human development background that you have with your education, people are very complex. We're not one size fits all. Our emotions span a gamut that is wild. Yeah. And so to rein this back in a little bit, because we can go on tangents all day, Ariel, which I love. I love that for us.
For the next 4 hours.
For the next 4.5 hours. Greg, I don't know when we're going to get you a lunch. Greg is our audio engineer and producer here today. So with clients, I want to know what are you seeing as the biggest barriers to people like living their true authentic life? And what are the biggest things that are coming up? Because when I hear life coach, it could be 50 different things. It could be career coaching, it could be personal life, it could be relationship. So what are those like most common things that you're seeing when you're talking to clients? Because I imagine your clients are all very different and unique in their own right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I focus on two things. I focus my coaching on mental fitness, which really covers a lot, and then also accountability. I think that having somebody who is going to be non-judgmental, but also hold you accountable. And when I say hold accountable, I don't mean that I'm there like, are you kidding me? Like, you didn't do what you said you were gonna do. Like, no, of course it's the opposite of that. I'm not there to judge, right? But I'm there to help encourage and lift where I can. And
but talk a little bit more about accountability. In today's world, right? Again, go back to the social media example. I can put something out there, and the ramifications in theory could be substantial, right? If someone really fires back something, but there's not a lot of, I think we lack accountability in the world. And so when you say accountability to a client, what's that initial reaction? Is it like, oh no, is it accountability to self? Is it accountability to the world? Is it accountability? I mean, accountability to yourself, in my opinion, if we were all accountable to ourselves, the world would infinitely be better immediately, right?
Totally.
In 1 second, we would live in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I think on its face, accountability to me means following through and doing what you say you're going to do. I think part of what makes life coaching transformative for people is doing what you say you're going to do and being committed to doing some things that might be uncomfortable. But what I try to do as a coach, I mean, it's interesting because to me, a coach is not a mentor. A coach is not like a therapist, right? Like, I'm not a therapist. When people have dealt with trauma or experiences that have been traumatic for them, like I'm the first one to say, listen, thank you for thinking of me, but I have 2 or 3 different therapists I'd love for you to talk to.
Right.
But yeah, accountability. I think that when we understand how awesome we are, and I mean that in every way. Like, if you're out there right now listening to this and you are having any doubts about, like, am I good enough? Please, until you believe it yourself, let me just tell you, yes. Yes, you are. You are absolutely enough. You are. You just are. Whether you believe in God or the universe, you are a human being who is deserving of respect, who is lovable, as unlovable as you might think you are. I promise you, you are lovable. You are loved. And so one of the biggest discoveries that I had in my own coaching journey, I guess you could call it that, was I realized that for so much of my life, I didn't think I was good enough. And that was really, really scary for me to admit to myself. I knew deep down that that's what I believed and thought, but to come out and like write it down or say it out loud, it was like,
right.
Oh my gosh, like super vulnerable, like really uncomfortable. So, but that's what I believed for a really long time. And I go back to experiences that I had in my life that the interpretation or the meaning I assigned to that experience was, oh, you didn't get cast in that show because you weren't good enough.
Right.
If you had been better, they would have,
they would have picked you, right?
Yeah. You failed the bar exam the first time you took it here in Nevada. Like, maybe you're not smart enough to be a lawyer. Wow, you didn't get that promotion that you were going for. Like, you're not good enough, Ariel.
Right.
You gotta try to work harder, but like, who knows if you're ever gonna live up to it, And so all of these things, right?
So vicious.
And it's so
like
vicious.
You would never say that to anyone else,
right.
But yet we're all walking around with this mental illness of like, if I tell myself I suck enough, I'm going to be better. And it's like, actually, that leads to burnout, and that leads to so many unpleasant, unnecessary experiences, right?
Yes, and it leads to suffering, unnecessary suffering. Anytime we have a thought or a belief that leads to any form of suffering, something about that thought or belief is false. It has to be.
That's interesting.
Because we all, again, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, human beings, when we hear things that resonate with our hearts and our souls, and if you believe you have a soul,
right,
that resonate with us deeply, it's because they're true. There's truth in that, right? So if we're telling ourselves this story that is leading to feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome or I'm worthless or whatever, something about that story that we're telling ourselves is off. It's false. And so if we can learn what the story is,
right,
understand it, and learn how to change that story so that it's actually true, it's going to allow us to become who we are meant to be, to live that authentic life that we're looking for, to do the things that are going to resonate with us, to become who we're meant to become.
And that in turn makes the world a better place.
Absolutely.
When you're serving your highest good and purpose, it makes the world better. It's very common, I think, with women a lot that, how dare you take care of yourself? How dare you, your wife having postpartum, like your wife is such a lovely human being. Like it just breaks my heart.
She's amazing.
To know that she went through that, right?
Yeah.
But I think the worthiness game, because it's totally a game that we play with ourselves, it's sad, because and consumerism has not helped that, right?
Sure.
You need more shoes, more water bottles, more makeup. If you have all of these things, right, they sell you this absolute lie that these things will make you the most incredible creature God has ever put on earth.
Yep.
And the reality is, like they used to say, the shoe doesn't make the woman makes the shoe, right? It's it's all you. That magic and that power is in you. So when you're coaching clients and when you're talking to people, again, coming from these really interesting backgrounds, is burnout a big thing amongst people? Do you see a lot of people having these life epiphanies about, switching careers or changing up the way they're thinking about family, or what is that really looking like?
Yeah, so everybody's different, but it's really the most fulfilling thing for me as a coach is to watch people unlock what has been locked up for so long, which is permission to do what you want to do, what you really want to do. I don't mean I want a Lamborghini, and so look, if that's
love that for you.
That's great, but what really matters, which is usually people, relationships,
right,
with yourself, with those who are closest to you. And in order to show up in a way that's powerful, that's going to be consistent with who you are, it all goes back to understanding the story that you're telling yourself. And so, if now my mind's going completely blank. What was the question you asked me, Caitlin?
I love this.
ADD's kicking in here. I'm sorry.
I love it. It's a Friday, people. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Pre-record. So I think the question is with people seeking life coaching, if there are people out there listening to this that are like, I want to do it, but I'm afraid, but what are those? Is any reason a good enough reason to go get life coached, right? Because again, I think, especially if you're a strong personality, it's I don't know if I want to, air my dirty laundry to somebody that I don't really know, a friendly stranger, if you will.
Totally.
And so I guess, what are those things that people are reaching out to you to get life coaching for? Is it personal burnout? Is it relationships? Is it just life, the heaviness of life? I mean, it is heavy. The energy is palpable. I believe in energy as much as I believe in God and source. And I think, energetically, people are not in a good place, is my empathic sense when I'm out and about.
Yeah, yeah. So I help a lot of people who feel stuck. Like that's on LinkedIn, if you go look me up, it'll say feeling stuck. And so a lot of people feel stuck, whether it's I feel stuck in this relationship, or I feel stuck in my job, or I feel stuck in that I haven't been able to launch the fill in the blank that I've been wanting to for the last 2 years. So there's a lot of that. And the reason they feel stuck, again, it's because of the meaning they're assigning to their circumstances and the way that we think about things. Like that may sound oversimplified, and maybe it's slightly oversimplified, but there is so much power in being able to think the way that we want to think. Like you said, having thoughts that are going to be true, number one, and that are going to inspire feelings that are going to motivate us to take the action we want to take to produce these results that we want in our life. So I've coached people anyone from a woman who had to retire early to take care of full-time of her ailing husband, who was injured in an accident, to a CEO, to a college student, to a recently returned missionary for his church who'd been gone for 2 years in another country, and everything in between. But I think the consistent thing is feeling stuck, feeling unfulfilled. Maybe it's somebody who's checked all the boxes. I've made X. I have the Lambo. I have this. I have that. And yet I still feel unfulfilled. Why? It's like, well, let's figure that out. You know? And so I would just say to anybody who that might resonate with, or anybody who's feeling like, well, is a life coach right? Reach out to somebody who you trust. And if you don't know anybody, you can always reach out to me. You totally can, but learn more about it. Look for it. I think the biggest thing with life coaching is if you show up willing to be open and honest with yourself, that's step one. You've got to be willing to be honest with yourself. And just ask anybody who is in that spot where they're feeling stuck or whatever. Like, I was at a point where I was like, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, right? Which is like puts a life coach in a really like position of trust, right? Like, I don't tell my clients what to do. I ask questions. I challenge beliefs or thoughts that they're having, and push back on this, that, or the other. But at the end of the day, I ask them, what are one or two things consistent with what we've talked about today that you want to do this week? Right. And they'll do it, right? And that's where that accountability comes into.
Small. First of all, the most important relationship you ever have in your life is yourself. If you don't like yourself, you don't love yourself, you don't respect yourself, the world responds to whatever you're telling it. Totally. Right? Because this is also telling the universe and the world how to, treat you. But also, I mean, I think the idea of being stuck, that's such a powerful, profound word to me, because, I think we've all been there. I think that's part of the human experience, right? When we get comfortable, when we get complacent, when we get in a place where we're like, well, is this enough, right? The worthiness game and the stuck thing, right? Kind of have this weird relationship in my mind. And I think it's, it's never been a more important time. And I don't know, maybe it's my age, maybe it's that time feels like it's flashing by every day. But, this is the moment and the time to do it. And people are all that matter. They're the most important thing. Totally. When it comes to business and relationships and family and community, whatever that looks like, we've got to stop fooling ourselves into believing that things are going to fulfill us. This is not going to make me feel whole and wonderful and loved and happy. I think, and, sometimes it takes some big life events to like refocus that. Loss, it's been a huge theme in my life, like the last 5 years. And I will tell you, it refocuses a lot of those beliefs. I love that word that you used, that what I thought was important, or what I thought I knew, completely changed on the dime, right? When your health is so important. And I think life coaching lends itself to that, right? If you're having these feelings of being stuck, your physical body will give you a reaction to that, right?
100%.
Whether it's being tired or being in pain or being whatever. And I think one of the biggest lies we also tell ourselves is that we don't know our own body, right? With the medical system, with all the magical pills out there to make you better, and the supplements, and if you drink this, you're going to look like Prince Charming in the morning, right? And you're just like, whoa, how did we get here? Like the belief system that it's a quick fix, when the reality is, probably for a lot of people you coach, for all of us as human beings, it's a slow burn to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
You didn't just wake up one day and just feel like this. There
Right.
were a lot of events and life happenings and feelings that led you to where you are today, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing. We can't feel like this quick fix mentality in this like fast culture. I'm very into like the food system right now. Why? I don't know, because it makes me so upset and it makes me so sad, but it also makes me hopeful. But it's like the evolution of fast food, this quick answer to like, I need a meal, I need fuel. We've been sold the idea that a fast food meal is going to be better and more efficient for you than preparing at home, right? Because why? Accountability. Do I want to take the 20 minutes? I'm also coaching myself right now when I say this, because apparently I'm a life coach now. But you know, it's these little things that we've tricked ourselves into believing, right? Our belief system dictates how we live in this world.
Right.
And we can change our mind. I think my biggest takeaway in the last 3 years has been I can change my mind.
Yeah.
I could have believed something and then pivoted and said, you know what? I don't believe that anymore.
Totally.
You know, I think this idea that we can be wrong and we can challenge ourselves, that's also very divisive in mainstream culture. It's like, no, you've been
once this, you're
way,
always this.
you know,
Yeah,
and it's
right.
like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
so fucked up. But okay, yeah.
You know, one thing that came to mind while you were talking is, and if we're over time, I'm so sorry. But
You're hilarious. There's plenty of time for you.
It's easy, especially when we're in that mode of self-sabotage, where it's like, you're not good enough, you're this, you're not that. Again, reinforced, like all the while we're feeling those things, and we look at social media, which is like this fake perfection that literally does not exist in real life.
For the people who also are putting it out there, like
Right.
mic check 1 2 1 2. Like these people are. This is not
Yes.
reality.
Like I try, like, and occasionally, if you look at any of my posts on LinkedIn or Facebook or LinkedIn or on or Instagram, like I really try once in a while to just like share a story of like real life, like this day sucked and let me tell you what happened or whatever.
Right.
Or like put a picture where everyone's smiling but my youngest is making this crazy face
Atrocious
or whatever,
face,
or like
yeah.
you know, like whatever it is, like try to be real. But as we're in this place where whether stuck is the word you use or whatever, if you're in this bad place, I think it's important to remember, like, you're not broken. This is not, you're human.
right.
And based on the story that your brain has been telling you, it's perfectly understandable why you feel this way.
Right.
So like, if you need help, go get help. Like, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. I think this is Mental Health Awareness Month, isn't it? May,
It is very good. Yes.
Like, I feel that so deeply that like, it is okay to struggle. It is okay. It's part of life. We need
Totally.
each other. Whether it's a life coach or a family member or a friend or whoever, if you're struggling, you're not broken. You're okay. I loved the analogy, and then this will be the last thing I say, I promise. But probably not.
But probably not.
But,
Okay, yeah.
I just heard it recently that for those who are just listening and not watching, I'm holding my hand high above my head. This is your worth. This might be your quote unquote worthiness. When I say this, my other hand is going up and down.
Right.
Your worth never changes. It doesn't. Your worth remains constant. Your worthiness, based on the choices you choose to make, the offensive things you say, or the whatever, you know, like the things that happen in life, that can change, but your worth never changes. So please believe that. If you're second guessing that, if you're wondering that, like, just know that your worth doesn't change. You can change the way your life looks, and it all starts with just being honest with yourself and being able to be open to change and to asking for help.
Totally. I love it. This has been a very insightful conversation, Ariel. I want to thank you because it's always nice. I think my goal with this show is to make sure that people hear things that resonate with them, right? And that we talk about real things that actually matter. Cut the shit. That's my line today, guys. I don't know. That's my hot take for the day. But as we wrap up, I would love for you to look into that camera and give my listeners just your 1-minute pitch about what you're doing with your coaching, where they can find you, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I should have practiced this. Man, you're putting me on the spot. No, I'm just kidding. Similar to what I had already said, you matter. You're not broken. If you're struggling, I hear you. I feel you. We all struggle. But if you are looking to transform your life in a way that is meaningful to you, that aligns with who you are, what you value, life coaching might be right for you. If you feel stuck, if you feel like you're not living up to your potential, life coaching, I found for myself, and what I share with all of my clients is life coaching might be a great fit for you. So you can reach out to me. If I'm not the greatest fit for you, I know a ton of other life coaches who are just as qualified or more qualified than I am. And I'd love to connect you with somebody who can help you. So you can find me on Instagram. What is my Instagram handle? I'm still new to this, guys, okay? Calm down. I think it's just at Ariel C. Johnson is Instagram. Facebook, just my name, Ariel Johnson. And then LinkedIn, you can look me up. It's Ariel Johnson. How was that, Caitlin? Was that okay?
That was so electric. I need you to know on behalf of all of our performing friends, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and your thoughtfulness about life. This is not an easy journey, and we're all just trying to find our way. And I appreciate that you are out there working with people and giving them the opportunity to really self-guide that journey into whatever their greatness might be. So for all of you listening, as always, if you will like and follow, we cannot do this without you. So please subscribe, take a look at our videos, and let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode. It's always nice to have questions for our wonderful guests and really get some feedback on these ordinary people doing extraordinary things. We will see you all next week. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and follow us at Convos with Kate on all social platforms. It would mean the world to me. See you next week.